Hitori Kakurenbo, Tokyo, Japan. As an American studying abroad in Japan and living with a host family, I had found myself drawn to the rich culture and traditions of the country. I was particularly fascinated by the stories of local customs and practices, especially those involving spirituality and belief systems. Little did I know that I would soon encounter a terrifying reality, far more frightening than any fictional tale. My host sister Itsuki introduced me to a peculiar game called Hitori Kakurenbo, or hide and seek alone in English. She claimed it was a popular pastime among her classmates and a way to play hide and seek with spirits. Initially skeptical, I thought there couldn't be much harm in it, and I found myself intrigued by the prospect of an adrenaline rush and a chance to step outside of my comfort zone. On a chilly Sunday evening, Itsuki and I embarked on this perilous adventure, following the instructions she had gathered from her friends. We prepared the necessary items, a doll, cups of salt water, and a kitchen knife. Itsuki named the doll Yukine. It was a creepy looking figurine from a 100-yen store, but Itsuki thought otherwise. I watched as she tore out the stuffing of the doll and replaced it with some rice. Now we need to add a drop of our blood into it, one from you and one from me, she said, as she tried to remember the rules her friend told her about the game. She poked my finger and hers, and we both let a drop of our blood go into the rice. She then mixed it in and sewed up the doll with red thread, binding the doll with the thread. Why did we have to do that? I asked. The red is supposed to represent the blood vessels. We will have to sever them tonight at 3 in the afternoon or in the morning. In the morning, silly. She then made a salt line around her parents' room. What's that for? I asked curiously. Apparently, it stops the spirits from going into the room to find you. So are we going to hide in here? No, that would be boring and too easy. I just don't want my parents' room to get destroyed. As the clock struck 3 a.m., we ventured into the bathroom, the eerie silence of the sleeping household amplifying our apprehension. We placed Yukine in the bathtub, filled with water, and chanted a phrase that Itsuki claimed was part of the game. Itsuki and Chloe are first it, Itsuki and Chloe are first it. With hearts pounding and adrenaline coursing through our veins, we ran out of the bathroom, plunging the house into darkness and turning on the television to a static channel. Itsuki, armed with the kitchen knife, positioned herself near the saltwater cups, while I stood guard, my nerves on edge. Returning to the bathroom, we found Yukine still in the tub, her painted smile seemingly more sinister in the dim light. Itsuki swiftly stabbed the doll's heart, severing several strands of the red thread that bound it. The severed thread was part of the game's instructions, a symbolic action to add to the thrill. We repeated the chanting, Yukine is the second it, Yukine is the second it, and hastily retreated to our hiding spot in the closet, leaving the door slightly open. Itsuki, unable to resist the morbid curiosity, peered through the crack, her eyes wide with anticipation. The television's static began to morph, forming words and phrases from different channels. The words each echoing through the silent house sent a chill down my spine.
I will find you,
they proclaimed, a chilling threat that hung heavy in the air. The closet felt colder, the shadows denser, as the footsteps of an unseen entity echoed through the house. My breath caught in my throat as the footsteps stopped right outside our hiding spot.
Are you in there?
The voice whispered, sending shivers down our spines. And then the final words, a chilling confirmation of our deepest fears.
Found you.
A scream pierced the silence, Itsuki's piercing cry shattering the stillness of the night. The knife, the very tool we had used to play the game, had pierced her eye. A tragic accident amidst a thrill-seeking ritual. Panicked, I scrambled out of the closet. My heart was pounding in my chest. I found Itsuki lying on the floor, her eye bleeding profusely, the knife still lodged in its socket. She had swallowed the salt water by mistake, a fatal error in our ill-advised game. As I called for an ambulance, Itsuki managed to whisper a single instruction: end the ritual, with trembling hands. I followed her instructions, searching for the cursed doll. I found it perched on Itsuki's bed, its grin widening in mockery of our plight. I poured the salt water on the doll and spat out the salt water in my mouth, repeating the phrase, I win, I win, I win. Then, driven by desperation, I doused the doll in gasoline and set it ablaze, hoping to banish the unsettling feeling that had gripped us since the start of the game. By the time the ambulance arrived, Itsuki was unconscious, and her eye was irreparably damaged. They said she would lose sight in that eye, which served as a constant reminder of our reckless adventure. The scariest thing about it all is that even though I ended the ritual and burnt the doll to a crisp, Itsuki told me that she doesn't think it's ended, and that she can still see the doll Yukine when that one eye is open. And recently, I have been seeing things out of the corner of my eye too. I did as she said and ended the ritual, but maybe what she said was wrong and it's still ongoing. A few days later, some strange things started happening. I can hear footsteps outside my door around 3 in the morning. The TV starts changing channels all by itself and the sound warps. I keep incense burning in my room and salt to keep me safe, and have advised Itsuki to do the same. But if someone comes up to you and asks if you want to play Hitori Kakurenbo, save yourself the trouble and tell them no. Just don't play that game. After looking up the real directions now, we did a lot of things wrong. Putting our blood in it was wrong. In fact, it could curse you. You are actually meant to put fingernail clippings inside instead. I really hope I'm not cursed forever, all because of a stupid mistake in trying this out. I have been feeling nauseated whenever I'm inside the house, and I keep seeing things move out of the corner of my eye. Last night, at 3 a.m., I was woken up by footsteps outside my door as usual, but this time they stopped, and something began scratching at the door, as if someone or something was raking its nails into the door. I covered myself with the blankets and threw salt over my shoulder, hoping I would be safe. In the morning, there was a symbol on the door, the Japanese symbol for death, in what looked like blood. I quickly wiped it off before anyone else would notice, and I saw the same mark on Itsuki's door too, so I decided to show her. She then looked at me and smiled. So it has begun. I was startled and taken off guard by her response. I couldn't do anything but stare at her. At that same moment, I noticed a fairly large cut on her wrist. Itsuki, did you get hurt? She yanked her arm away and said,
Leave us alone.
In that moment, her voice didn't sound normal. It sounded disembodied, and I could have sworn her other eye, the one not covered by the patch, went black for a second. It was strange that she said us, but I didn't say anything else to her. I just let her go back to her room, and then cleaned the blood off her door. I then knocked and asked if she would like to go to the shrine with me today, as she wanted to just yesterday, but now she said,
No, go away.
I went to the shrine by myself and asked some schoolgirls who passed by for directions. They all stared at me for being a foreigner. As I got closer to the shrine, I started to feel more and more sick. My head was pounding so hard and my stomach was aching like crazy. The overall feeling was excruciating, but for some reason I kept going, determined to reach the shrine. When I finally passed through the torii gate, I vomited a dark color liquid on the ground and passed out a few seconds afterwards. When I woke up, a priest had told me that around 8 hours had passed. He told me that I was cursed by something powerful, and that's when I told him about the game, and he shook his head. That's very dangerous. Recently, a lot of other girls from Kasukabe Girls High School have been coming here as well. You cannot play that game. It's basically a ritual essentially summoning a spirit and telling it that it can have your body as a host if you are found. He paused and took a deep breath again before saying, "You are lucky you weren't possessed, but you were cursed, and it was that very impurity that didn't allow you to enter the shrine." He told me he had spent hours praying and cleansing my soul before giving me some talismans, and told me to hang them on the other side of the door to my room, in order to ward off any evil from entering. I thanked him and set off back home. I felt like a huge pressure had been released from my body, but he told me that I was very lucky, since I only had a brush with a curse and didn't get possessed. But since I wasn't possessed, that meant that the brunt of it had fallen to Itsuki. I now had no doubt in my mind that she was possessed. When she was found and stabbed, her body became the host for Yukine. That's why she was acting strange this morning. And I also noticed that when she opened her door in the morning, the salt lines that were initially serving as protection were no longer there, and the incense was sticking out of her trash can. I arrived home an hour later, and even though it was 8 p.m, there was nobody there, except for Itsuki, and a note left on the table in English. "Dear Chloe, baby Yukine is sick and in the hospital. Please don't worry if we get back late. We went to help out. Love, Mum and Dad." Baby Yukine. This was freaking me out. It turns out baby Yukine is Itsuki's new baby cousin who is in the hospital. Itsuki's door was closed, the lights were off, and she wouldn't answer even though I knocked on the door to check on her. I tried going out on the balcony and peeking into her room to see if she was alright, but her curtains were shut, except for one eye peering out at me. I ran back into my room as fast as I could, closed the door, poured salt everywhere, even outside my door, stuck the talismans up, and started burning incense. I have stopped seeing things moving now, but I'm terrified of Itsuki. Part of me just wants to call up the program and ask to transfer me to another host family, but then I'd feel bad for doing this to them. I feel as though I'm obligated to see this through to the end, but I don't know what to do at this point. It's really scary. I wish I never played this ritual game. If anyone has any advice as to what I should do in case of a haunting and possession in Japan, please let me know. The Yokai of Yamanashi. The biting cold of a Japanese winter night gnawed at my exposed skin as I stepped out of our makeshift dwelling. We had been stationed deep in the Yamanashi prefecture, nestled amidst the foothills of Mount Fuji, tasked with a construction project in this remote, desolate village. Our temporary home, a prefabricated hut constructed near the worksite, offered little haven against the oppressive silence of the moonless night. There was a few of us together on this one night as we celebrated, which helped to get rid of the feeling of isolation that we often felt during this construction project. As the late hour took its toll, a familiar thirst sensation began to grow in my throat. Across the street, there was a glow of a vending machine, beckoning me, as if promising a reprieve from the dryness brought on by the alcohol. Hesitation clawed at me. It was nights like these, when the darkness seemed to engulf every corner of the valley, that the local villagers' warnings of restless spirits and yokai whispered through my mind. But I didn't believe in those things, and the law of refreshment was too tempting to ignore, so I went to grab a drink. My colleague, a man seasoned by countless late-night drinking sessions, readily agreed to accompany me. We ventured out into the night, swallowed by the darkness that seemed to press down on us from the starless sky. The only sounds were our breaths, mingling with the chirping of crickets and the mournful cry of a distant owl. We reached the vending machine, my colleague reaching it first. As I fumbled with coins, I heard him gasp, a tremor in his voice. "What in the world is that?" he whispered, his eyes fixed on something beyond my sight. A wave of dread washed over me. Following his gaze, I looked towards the sprawling rice fields that stretched out like a dark expanse. A lone figure stood amidst the shivering stalks, a silhouette that defied all logic and reason. It was humanoid, but grotesquely distorted. Its limbs were elongated. Its head was a bulbous mass perched atop its impossibly slender body. Pale white flesh seemed to glimmer in the dim moonlight, contrasting by a pair of eyes that shone with an unnatural luminescence. A voice, raspy and raw, emanated from the figure. "Hey," it called out, sending a shiver down my spine. Terror gripped me, freezing my limbs as I stared at this monstrous apparition. Nausea churned in my stomach as the creature tilted its head, its glowing eyes seemingly penetrating into my very soul. The spell was broken by my colleague, who turned and fled back to the hut. I followed without hesitation, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. We reached our dwelling, breathless and shaking. We recounted our encounter to the others, but were met with skepticism and disbelief. Yet the image of that haunting figure etched in the back of my mind continues to visit my dreams, a chilling reminder of the unknown that lurks in the shadows. The experience forever changed me, leaving a lingering sense of unease and a newfound respect for the traditions and legends that permeate life in rural Japan. I left those quiet mountains a different man, forever haunted by the face of the monstrous yokai and the knowledge that there are indeed things that go bump in the night. The remote village. The anticipation had been building for months, and now I was finally in Japan, the land of my dreams. I was excited to experience the ancient traditions and breathtaking landscapes. I was eager to immerse myself in all that the country had to offer, from exploring bustling cities to venturing into serene countryside. My first stop was Tokyo, the vibrant metropolis that never sleeps. I was captivated by the towering skyscrapers, the neon-lit streets, and the endless array of shops and restaurants. I wandered through the markets, savored the flavors of authentic Japanese cuisine, and marveled at the sights of traditional temples and shrines. After a few days in Tokyo, I decided to venture beyond the city and explore the natural beauty of Japan. I embarked on a journey through the countryside, admiring the lush mountains, forests and lakes. I hiked through verdant trails and visited many shrines and ancient temples. One day, my travels led me to a remote village, nestled deep within the mountains. The village was shrouded in an air of mystery, with its ancient wooden houses, narrow cobblestone streets, and a sense of timelessness that seemed to hang in the air. I was intrigued by the village's unique customs and traditions, and I felt a sense of adventure as I explored its hidden corners. As I wandered through the village, I noticed a beautiful woman standing by a well. She had long flowing black hair, piercing clear eyes, and a smile that could melt your heart. I was immediately drawn, and I approached her to introduce myself. The woman's name was Yuki, and she was as kind and charming as she was beautiful. We talked for hours, and I felt a connection with her that I had never felt with anyone else. As the sun began to set, I reluctantly decided to leave Yuki and return to my lodgings in the village. But as I walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced over my shoulder and I saw a shadowy figure standing in the distance. The figure was tall and slender, with long flowing hair that blended into the darkness. It was just watching me as I walked to my lodging. I hurried home and quickly slammed the door shut behind me. As I quickly checked all the windows to make sure nobody was outside waiting. The coast seemed clear. I decided to message Yuki and make sure she was okay too. It didn't take long for her to reply. About 2 minutes after I sent the message, she replied that she was okay and didn't see anything strange. I sighed in relief and went to bed wondering what it was that I saw watching me. The next morning I got up and prepared to head out, exploring as part of my plans. But I was interrupted by a sudden knock on my door. It turns out it was Yuki, who wanted to ask if I was free to go out with her. I let her know my plans and she said it sounded like fun and offered to come with me. She even offered to make me breakfast before we set out. We sat and ate together. She made steamed rice, miso soup and grilled fish with some other stuff. Afterwards we set out and travelled up a mountain path to take in the scenery and enjoy the view. As it started getting dark, I told Yuki we should start heading back, and she agreed. But as we were walking down the mountain path, something moved near the bottom, and I moved over the edge to check it out. Suddenly, I felt something push me, and I fell over the edge. Luckily, it wasn't too steep, so I tumbled only a little, and ended up stopping at a rock. When I looked up, I saw Yuki in the dark, staring at me with a disappointed face, as if she clearly wanted me dead. I then realized that it was her who followed me home and was watching me the other night. That long flowing hair was the same. I got up and ran as fast as I could, and quickly entered the nearest public bar in the village and told them all about Yuki trying to kill me. They all laughed in disbelief and said, "Yuki? Who's that? There ain't no girl in this village with the name Yuki." My heart sank and I was terrified and confused. But she was right outside behind me, chasing me here, I said to the villagers. When we looked outside, there was nobody around, and her contact details somehow vanished from my phone. I'm not sure if she had a chance to grab it and delete it while she was making breakfast in the morning. But whatever the case, I need to head back into the city. So I left for Nagasaki thinking how lucky I was to escape this psycho killer woman. But at the same time, I wondered if she was some kind of yokai or vengeful spirit. I never knew Japan could be so scary. The Shrine Ritual. Growing up in a small town in the Japanese countryside, me and my friend Kenji were interested in rumors of the Ushino Kokumayiri, a dark and sinister ritual said to be used to inflict curses upon unsuspecting victims. As a young man, I shared an unbreakable bond with my closest friend Kenji, whose family resided in a sprawling mansion just a stone's throw from the town's revered shrine. The shrine, steeped in ancient traditions and shrouded in an air of mystery, stood as a silent sentinel, its imposing presence commanding respect and a hint of fear. One night we had got too curious and had a desire to test our courage. Kenji and I hatched a daring plan to venture into the shrine grounds under the cloak of darkness, hoping to witness the elusive Ushino Kokumayiri ritual firsthand. As the moon cast its silvery glow upon the landscape, we crept into the shrine's dimly lit grounds, our hearts pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The air hung heavy with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves beneath our feet. After navigating the hidden pathways, we finally settled upon a secluded spot, concealed from view by the thick foliage of ancient trees from our vantage point. From our vantage point, we waited with bated breath, our eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement, hoping someone will come to the shrine to start the ritual. Time seemed to stretch into an eternity as we remained hidden, our senses heightened by the anticipation of the unknown. Just as we were about to abandon our spot, a flickering light pierced the gloom, growing steadily closer. Our hearts leaped into our throats as we strained to see through the darkness. The light revealed a solitary figure, a woman clad in a plain white t-shirt and slacks. Her face was obscured by the darkness. She carried a small penlight in her hand. Its beam casted an otherworldly glow upon her path. As the woman approached the tree where we were concealed, a strange feeling washed over me, a mixture of curiosity and unease. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were witnessing something we shouldn't. The woman stopped when she got to the shrine and reached into her bag, retrieving a small straw doll. Her movements were deliberate, her actions imbued with a chilling calmness that sent a shiver down my spine. With a swift and practiced motion, she began to hammer nails into the doll, each strike echoing through the stillness of the night. The sound was both haunting and hypnotic, a sinister symphony that filled the air with a palpable tension. As I watched the woman perform the ritual, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. Something about the intensity of her focus, the ferocity which she hammered the nails, spoke of a deep-seated hatred and a desire for vengeance. Suddenly, the woman's lips curled into a sinister smile, and she let out a low guttural growl. The sound was primal, animalistic, and filled with a chilling malice. I felt a surge of adrenaline course through my veins, and I knew we had to escape this place before it was too late. I gestured frantically to Kenji, signaling for us to retreat. We slipped away into the shadows, our footsteps echoing through the silent shrine grounds. The woman's laughter pursued us, a haunting melody that seemed to penetrate the very depths of our souls. The events of the night left a mark in my head. The image of the woman performing the Ushino Kokumayeri ritual, her face contorted in a mask of hatred, was forever etched into my memory. I realized then and there that the world was not always as it seemed, that there existed forces far beyond our comprehension, forces that could inflict harm and cause unspeakable pain. I couldn't help but wonder what was happening to the person on the receiving end of this curse. The Ushino Kokumayeri ritual of curses served as a stark reminder of these hidden powers, a chilling testament to the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of our seemingly peaceful existence. There is a lot of horrifying things that take place in Japan that you would probably never notice. If you have any scary stories to share, you can send them over to storiesofdespairbusiness@gmail.com.